I went through your bio and I read about some of the wonderful work you've done. And it's been amazing. You're so young, but your journey is equivalent to that of, say, a really, really long, somebody who's been in the environment field for many, many years. So I just want to understand, you're inspiring so many out there. So what has been your inspiration when it comes to the journey that you've had, and what made you want to become an environment conservation?
So I live in Sydney, Australia, on the northern beaches of Sydney. So maybe one of the most famous beaches in Sydney. So I've been very lucky to live so close to the beach. It's always been a very big force in my life. When you live so close to something, you're always there and you just develop such a love for it. I'm a very big animal person too. I started my organisation because I wanted to be a vet and I couldn't be a vet. Unfortunately, at 10, you can't go to uni. So that was my other option. And yeah, and then I also fell in love with snorkeling a few years ago, which has just been amazing because it just looks so different underwater.
So now you are leading and heading an organization, and it must be a lot of task for you to make sure that you are there in the grassroots making change and also handling and managing an organization. So I just want to understand your journey that brought you to starting this and now leading this organization.
So it's been quite a long journey. I researched, I wanted to do an Australian marine species, and I chose dugongs, who I just adore dugongs. They're very cute, and I've gotten to know a lot about them over these years. So I contacted SeaWorld Australia, different to the US, and they gave me prizes to run a competition raffle thing, which was really successful. And then I moved on to high school when I was 12, 13. And I renamed my organisation from Save the Dugongs to Seize a Change, which has been amazing. And then I was able to grow my team and our expanse. And I also during that time, I was an Ocean Youth Ambassador, which is the Sea Life, part of the Sea Life Trust, Sea Life Sydney Aquarium, which has been an amazing opportunity. And I was able to go on a research trip with Dr. Janet Lanyon, who's the key dugong researcher in Australia. And I was also able to attend Ocean Heroes Boot Camp last year in Canada, and I'll be a squad leader this year. I never really knew where I wanted to go with this. The journey just sort of took off, took its own life. Didn't really have any plans for it, but it's been really amazing. And so what my organisation does now is we raise funds and awareness for endangered sea life and their environments. And we also focus on youth empowerment and educating people in primary school and high school.
It must have been a bit of a challenging journey when it comes to protecting our environment. And there are a lot of external challenges that we face, right? So from people not supporting our movement to getting people on board for our movement, to, like you said, advocating and empowering youth. So what have been your major challenges when it comes to this journey of protecting our environment?
I think the major challenge, so I started when I'm 10 and I am currently 16. So the major challenge is that I am not an adult yet. So adults do not tend to take youth seriously because we don't have life experience. But all I am doing is reading what the scientists say, spreading the facts that the scientists have created. I'm not coming up with them myself. And unfortunately, because I am still young, we're not taken seriously, and we're not counted as responsible with donation money, and we're not counted as responsible for organising events and things that we have done and many youth have done, but still we haven't been quite able to break down that barrier yet. So that's been quite challenging. And also coming with not being an adult is not being able to register my organisation as a charity yet. So when I am 18, I will be able to do that. And having bank accounts, I have to have certain bank accounts in my parents' names instead of my name because I am under 18. And so a lot of those difficulties come with it. Another challenge is just that some people, especially older people, do not support us advocating for our environment. They don't believe that there is something to advocate for, especially when it comes to climate change, which is obviously quite hard to get the message across, and sometimes people can be very loud on social media with their negative comments, and a lot of the times it's not even saying like, this is what my belief is, this is where I found my beliefs from, this is what supports my idea. It's just, you're young, you're dumb, go back to school, which can be quite hard and something that you do have to learn to deal with. I found that quite hard at the start to deal with that. And I think another challenge is just, I was doing this on my own for so long. And when you're on your own, you just try and go for it all the time, and you're not able to bounce ideas off other people. And I'm really blessed to have a team now who I loved pieces, and they're just amazing. And we work so hard together, but still just having that little group of people, you're not always able to connect with everyone. And also like having access to people who are in the field. Networking is so important, but sometimes so hard to do.
So you are 16, you have, of course, the educational aspect of your life, and then you're also managing your organization, and you're also protecting the environment. So what does a typical day for Steph look like from morning to evening? What does your day look like?
Every day is different, as I'm sure most senior high school students would understand. Some mornings I start my day at 5 o'clock, and I have interviews, meeting calls with people overseas, or I get up early in the morning to do some work for my organisation or schoolwork. Then I head to school for the day, and throughout the day I spend it replying to emails and messages. And then I work most afternoons, because unfortunately my charity does not pay for anything for me, and I need to pay for my organisation to stay online and keep running. So I work most afternoons, and then I spend my afternoons doing my schoolwork and working on my organisation, so like posting on social media, writing blog posts, organising events. Unfortunately, with the current global situation, we are not organising events at the moment. They have been postponed. But yeah, normally that's what it looks like, just meetings with either my team or people overseas, and yeah.
You are someone who is working right at the grassroots. So along with educating people, you're also at the grassroots, seeing what's happening to the oceans and seeing what's happening to our marine life. So just to understand from someone who is working at the grassroots, what is the situation of the marine life right now, and how bad or worse will it get if we continue the way we are going?
So the ICC, did I say that right? I think I said that right. Yeah, so the ICC released a report a couple of years ago saying that if we continue the way that we are, climate change will become irreversible. And it's quite unfortunate because there hasn't been a lot of action to stop releasing carbon emissions. But then people also don't understand that although we can stop releasing carbon emissions, we have to carbon sequester. It's not going to stop unless we start taking it out of the atmosphere, because we have gone so far into this journey. From like this, looking at a very small level, plastic pollution is a horrible issue that also links to climate change. Like everything is linked. Plastic's made out of oil, so there you go. And it's affecting our marine life so badly. A lot of marine life have now ingested plastics, microplastics. There's constantly rescues happening because they have been affected by humans. I was with a turtle the other day that ate a balloon, and the string was 2.5 meters long. That was 4 times her body size, and it's a turtle. We can't operate. We can't cut open the shell. You just have to let it pass through, or unfortunately, a lot of them do pass away because of it. And she was quite lucky that she was able to pass it through. But unfortunately, that's not the case for most of the animals, which is very upsetting to see. But there are a lot of amazing people working towards making the situation better. I know in Australia, our Great Barrier Reef is so important to us. It's a great source of tourism, which is for our economy amazing. but also it's just beautiful. And there are a lot of people working towards fixing our coral reefs because they have undergone so many mass bleaching events. And there's also people looking at planting seaweed and to look at carbon sequestering and restoring those habitats. So although the situation can be a bit dire when you do look at the facts, there are so many people working towards making it better. And when we're educating all of the youth on these issues, we are helping we're educating them so that they can grow up and they can make a change, because although we're not adults just yet, we make up 25% of the population, which is a massive amount of population. And one day, like, you know, we are 100% of the future. We're the ones who are going to be left with it, and our kids are going to be left with it. So people, especially young people, are working really hard for this cause.
The issue is majority of the countries that are landlocked and do not have direct access to oceans are very oblivious to what the situation is. And they are also oblivious to the fact that they're contributing to the plastic pollution. They just assume they're not near the ocean, so they don't have anything to do with it. But all of us do, and that's the part that we don't understand. This lockdown has given all of us really like a lot to think about. We are reflecting a lot. We are considering our actions. At least most of us are. We had an interview with Dr. Christine, and I had asked her, do you really think this pandemic is bringing any change to our environment? And she said, no, it's probably getting the same or the worse because of the use of gloves and masks and all of that that's still getting disposed. So I want to understand from you, do you think this pandemic is in a way supporting our environment?
Yeah, well, that's a hard question. I love Dr. Christine, so I would obviously have to agree with what she's saying because she's so well educated and such an amazing person. I think there's been a lot of news about this has cleared up and this has cleared up and, oh, look, we're doing amazing. But as straight away, everything went back to normal. Everyone was talking about China's emissions going like right down, and all of a sudden they're right back up there. And it's not going to be that like 2 months of stopping that's going to help us. It's you need to stop for a really long period of time and stop for good. And unfortunately, because of the impact on the economy, a lot of governments are turning towards fossil fuels, and also with oil prices becoming so cheap and everything. So governments are choosing to invest in fossil fuels, which is obviously detrimental to our environment. And also a lot of people have turned towards plastics because of the global pandemic, with gloves and masks, but also with food packaging. We've seen so many people panic buying and buying food that I know where I am, the situation is not as bad as the rest of the world. So I can only speak for what I can see in Australia. But I know that a lot of people were panic buying to the point where all the shelves were empty and the food wasn't eaten. No one ate the food because we didn't need to. We were very lucky in our situation. But the food wasn't eaten and the food waste levels have just skyrocketed, and everything that was bought in plastic because it was food that was preserved. And it's just quite sad to see the amount of waste, and you see all these images of masks and gloves washing up on the shore. And I understand that that is something that we do need to use right now, especially in countries where you are not allowed to exit your house unless you're wearing a mask. But just with the lack of proper disposal, I wouldn't think that the situation's getting better. At most, it's just stayed the same.
What do you think are some steps that we can take, say, individually or even as a family or a community to ensure that we are not going back to business as usual? Even though, like you mentioned, a lot of the countries or places that have opened up are already back to usual business. That's the case even here for us as well, where people just seem to be back. There is no social distancing and garbage disposal, use of products, from your coffee cups to packets and everything is out there again. So what are some of the little steps we can take to ensure that we're not going back to the old ways?
Trying to limit our use of single-use plastics is a really big thing. It's not normally, plastics are not normally connected to climate change, but the way that they're created, it really does affect climate change, and also the pollution in our waterways really affects our marine life. And plastic ends up in our waters, and we eat, I think it's a credit card worth of plastic a month or a week or something crazy. And that's not what's meant to be going into our bodies. So trying to limit our use of single-use plastics, the simplest way to do it is to avoid the top four, which is plastic bottles, plastic bags, plastic straws, and coffee cups. There are alternatives to that, but also be mindful when looking at alternatives, you don't need to buy every single thing that you see. Use what you have already. You don't want to be consuming for the sake of consuming. And I know, like, for me, because I work in the environmental space, everyone goes, cool, I'm just going to buy Steph a keep cup for her birthday. I have a lot of keep cups. So if you do end up in the situation where you end up with a lot of keep cups or a lot of metal straws, give them away. Share the love. Help someone else with their journey. Also, if you are of the age to vote, making smart voting decisions for our future and investing our finances and our money into places that are going to invest for the future as well. And looking at our home, do we need to have the lights on all the time? Can we switch to solar panels? Do we need to eat meat every single day? Can we limit what we're consuming in our clothing, in our fashion? We don't need to buy the newest trend every single day, which I know is hard for some people, but it will help your wardrobe and it will help your bank account. But there's just some really, really simple ways to do it. And then there's also some really big scales ways to do it. It depends on what you're able to do as a person and what's accessible to you. But just managing our food waste and our consumption is a really great way to make a difference. And if everyone could start doing that, we'd be well on the track to making a change.
So now when I look out there and I want to like draw inspiration for, pushing me every day to do my work, I look there as seeing a mass of just young people doing things, right? I only majority see young people. Of course, there are a lot of people from all generations and all age groups that are doing amazing work. But currently at the forefront of this movement, I see a lot of youth there. Youth as young as 8-year-old I have seen who are, trying to advocate for change. And this is what I want to understand from you. For those youth who are yet to be a part of this movement, or those youth who are just starting their journey, what would be your message for them, and what role do you think they need to definitely play to support the cause that we all are trying to work for?
I think obviously starting at such a young age, I don't think there's an age limit to where you can start and how you can start. I think if we put our minds to it, we can truly achieve anything. I never expected to be where I am today, and I'm so grateful to be where I am today, but it just comes from hard work. And unfortunately, that is what some things take, hard work and working really hard for a very long time until you see what that's going to come of. But for youth wanting to make a change, just start with educating yourself. You need to know the facts. It's so rewarding to know the facts, and it really helps you stand up against people who don't support your cause. And also shows when you're trying to talk with adults and trying to organize, it shows that you are educated, you've taken the time, and you've invested yourself into this situation. I'd say collaboration is something that I've learned is so important. Having a team, collaborating is so important and really helps it's great to bounce ideas off each other. I'd say don't be scared to email 100 people. I know when I first started, I emailed a bunch of people, and I got an email back from the biggest organization that I contacted, not from anyone else. And that was amazing for someone who was 10 years old to receive that. And it was such a boost to my confidence. But I had also written so many emails and not gotten a reply. So don't be scared to write email. The worst that can happen is that they're not going to respond to you, but someone will eventually. And you'd be surprised how much people do want to help and support you. I'd say also you don't need to be making major global change. I know for me, I don't focus incredibly on political change, just because my audience is people in primary school and people in high school, and we can't vote yet. So for me, focusing on political change wasn't something that I wanted to do. And I also know a lot of people are doing that. You don't have to start your own thing. You can support something that's already happening. You can join something that's already happening. Don't feel pressured to have to start your own thing, because that is a big task, and sometimes you're going to find it a lot more rewarding to join something that's already just been started up, or there's an idea. You don't want to double up on everyone's ideas. And yeah, just go for it and contact people who have already done it before you, because most people are really willing to help you. I know when I started, I would have loved someone to help me out. I didn't really know what I was doing, and so now I just, for anyone that does contact me wanting to start out, of course I'm going to share with you. And a lot of people share that mentality, because we're all working together for the same cause, no matter who we're working with and what organization we're working for.
Do you ever go through a feeling of, say, a sense of hopelessness when you don't see like world leaders taking up action, or people not giving priority to environment? And if you do, how do you overcome it? And similarly, the youth out there, for me also, for instance, some days I wake up and I just feel like, what am I doing? Is this even worth, the effort that I'm putting when people are just shutting doors on us? So how do you feel that, and how do you overcome that sort of, somebody uses term advocacy fatigue. So how do you overcome something like that?
Everyone feels a lack of motivation, like we're not doing something at some point. I don't feel like I really felt like I was succeeding in this industry until maybe like 2 years ago. You just have to work really hard at it, and not everyone's going to see success straight away. Everything that you see is, people have been working so hard for so long to get there, but you see an overnight success. And unfortunately, that's not what happens. It would be amazing if it worked that way, but it's not. And I don't think I am at that point where I am successful in this industry. But you can see your tangible change that you're making over time, and you're not going to see it straight away, which is really hard to learn and have to deal with, especially when it's something that you're working on every single day and you're putting your blood, sweat and tears into it. I think when you have a lack of motivation, come back to what you have achieved, and when you were feeling that sense of, I really want to do something, I'm really hopeful, look at everyone else around you making a difference. Focus on like the small successes. Even the big successes are great, but the small successes are awesome as well. I look at my career and I've done a lot of things, but my favorite thing that I've ever done is spoken at schools to primary school children, and a lot of people are shocked by that. But every time I go there, it is the most stressful experience, because I write a different script for everyone and a different PowerPoint, and it's the most stressful thing when you're trying to manage schoolwork. But you get there and you're like, okay, it was worth it. They are so engaged and motivated, and they're so excited to see you. And you just have to focus on that thing, because it's really easy to lose motivation and to feel hopeless, especially when you can see that not a lot of action is being done at a government level as well, and for large businesses as well. But we can also see that, some change is starting to happen. Businesses are changing their mindset. Some governments are making changes, and hopefully it will create a domino effect, and we'll see lots of changes being made that are then implemented and put into place. But just focusing on the small things and looking at, like, what's your why? I think educating yourself really helps you to find your why and what's so important to you. And it's your passion. Like, passions can, it's like a little roller coaster, but it's always there.
That's so well said. And I think the idea that, we should keep looking at what we've done, and also sometimes you'll find motivation in the most unexpected place. And I agree, when we also engage with children in schools, that's the highlight of anything that we do, because we see a sort of passion in them and we see them engaging with us. So that's absolutely, that's wonderfully put. So a final question, after which I would like to close, is, what is your vision and hope for our environment and our oceans? What do you see for our environment and our oceans?
I would love for our oceans to not be filled with plastic. For greenhouse gas emissions to subside, for us to start carbon sequestering, for our children, for our grandchildren to be able to enjoy the so many animals that are still on Earth, and to be able to enjoy them for future generations, because the sad fact is that maybe that's not what will happen. And that would just be amazing for everyone to experience this. And I'd love for people to, I think humans are quite selfish creatures, and sometimes the only way to get into someone's mind is to say, well, climate change might affect the environment and it might affect those animals, but it will affect you. And it would be great for people to realize that, but then also change their mentality and not be working towards it just for themselves, but to be working towards it for all of the animals and the creatures who don't have a voice and they can't do anything about it, because humans have made the decision to put our world in this situation. And we don't know that this was happening when we started it, but we do know now, and we are the first people really to be able to make a change. Every second breath we take comes from the ocean, and we want us to keep functioning as human beings, and for us to be able to keep taking that second breath from the ocean, and for that breath not to be coming from an ocean full of pollution and full of animals who are dying from our claws.
I think, yeah, that's a perfect vision to have, and I hope people understand and see that vision and realize that it may be a little late, but it's not too late, and we can still make and reverse the situation that we are in. So honestly, I think we all have a lot more to learn from the younger and the youth than we have from our previous generation. So thank you so much for sharing this. I am sure everyone who watches this will be completely in agreement, and we will have so much to take away from you. So thank you for taking the time today and for
Thank
sharing
you
this
for
happen.
interviewing me and giving me this opportunity. It's been amazing.